This conference will now be recorded.
So what we will do is, so what there are few transaction types. We few flows will try to uh, replicate, right? So standard invoice, right? Credit memo. These credit memos can be created two types. One is with the against specific invoice, or one is the standalone. What we can say. Okay, credit memos are debit memos, repayments, right? So payment payment actions or payment steps. Let's see what we can cover out of the all these three. Okay, so so I think I have some standard invoices, but let me create one more invoice today and we'll proceed further. What we will do is, let us say, for a supplier, you have a standard invoice. You have a standard invoice from the vendor, let's say for $2,000, and out of which maybe there might be due to the quality, the products which were shipped were not up to the quality expectations. Some of them are returned, maybe due to damage or due to the quality issues, or maybe the price, whatever the price that has been booked in the invoice, maybe it's an overprice. That price needs to be corrected, right? In those cases, what do you create as a process? You go for the either debit memo or credit memo, right? So when you create a debit memo or a credit memo, how does how does the system adjust this amount? Let us say for this, out of which I have I say that the 300 amount, which needs to be refunded, which needs to be reduced from the standard invoice, right? So when you are making payments to the supplier, how does this impact shows from the payment side? That we will see. Okay, so first let me create an standard invoice first with the same example whatever we discussed in the Excel, right? So this is 16001 PSG 2000, and the payment terms I'm making it as, let's keep it as immediate. Okay, so $2,000, and I need to provide punch in the distribution, right? This distribution I'm just taking it as it is. Else you can even create distribution sets, right?
Mr.
So this is done. My invoice is ready now. Okay. I've just validated. Right. I've just validated. I'm just creating accounting as well. So to make the to create the accounting for payable document, the source invoice has to be accounted first. That is the reason I'm just running on the accounting. Otherwise, it is just for the making payment process. It is not required, right? So this is my invoice, and let me create one more debit memo and credit memo. So as I said, debit memos or credit memos can be created two ways. That is what we discussed, right? So let me create it for how much did we 300. So thumb rule is it should be in negative sign, right? So let me create a debit memo. Debit and credit both serves the same purpose, right? So this is one way is to create a standard way of credit memo which we call as NAC credit memo, right? So where you do not mention any invoice details. See, we are creating a credit memo, we are reducing the liability, right? We are saying that the customer, we are saying that this supplier, that whatever the invoice you have sent, it is either overpriced due to the item price you have calculated, or maybe the quantity should be corrected because of the quality issues, maybe the quality or the goods were returned, right? So this thing happens against a specific invoice, right? Correct. So that credit memo can be recorded either two ways. One is against the specific invoice against which the credit has to be marked, and the other one is to be without giving the invoice details. You can even create the credit memo, right? So what we are doing is now we are creating a debit memo without giving reference to the any of the existing invoices. Okay, so let us do that. I have provided the distribution as well. This type of invoice we have already created. Okay, right? So let me account as well. Fine. Let me create one more credit memo or debit memo, whatever. Both serve the same purpose, right? So let's give the supplier details. USD. Again, I want to create it for $150, but it is at this time I would use to go for the credit memo, even though both serve the same purpose. So I have said the debit or credit memos can be created against a supplier without giving any invoice reference, or else you can create the debit or credit memo against a specific invoice. How do you do that? Once you enter the header information against lines, there is a drop down, right? So here you can create, there are two options: correct matched invoices, correct unmatched invoice. What is a matched invoice? Where an invoice is being created against a purchase order, that is matched invoice. Where an invoice is being created against an not against a invoice which is not matched. Unmatched itself, the name itself, it gives the explanation, right? Unmatched is invoice which is created without PO reference. Okay, just select the correct unmatched invoices, and so maybe the invoice number starts with, let me enter. So this is the invoice which I have created, right? So just give the invoice number details over there and search enable the correct button. Okay, and what is the correction type you want to make? Here it is amount correction. Why? Because we are correcting the, because it is the expense type of item that is being created, and the correction only would be the amount correction. Let us select that one and enter the amount towards the debit or credit memo you are entering. So minus 150, right? Just click on OK, apply, and OK. So the invoice, while doing so, what happens is the distribution will get copied automatically from the source invoice whatever you selected. Okay, if you go into the distributions, this distribution combination on credit memo we haven't created, if you remember. How come this is got populated is because we have matched this credit memo to an existing invoice against which this credit memo is being raised, so that the distribution will get copied over here, as well as the credit memo also will have the corrected invoice details. If you go here, see, if you go here, there are various tabs on the on the invoice lines headers. There are various tabs. You can toggle between these options, right? So if you go into the corrected invoices, so it says what is the corrected invoice, which means against which invoice, standard invoice, this credit memo is being raised. So the corrected invoice, what is the type it is showing? Correction type and invoice number, right? So these are the details it will show. And there is an, if you go into the view button, okay, so just I'm just saving it. Okay, see, there are various options at lines level. Okay, but there are additional values, additional data fields which are available on the lines, which can be viewed by any of the user. Okay, by default majority of them are majority of them are seen, but few of them are hidden. Okay, how do you make them shown? Is just go into the view button, columns, and here there is a show all. If you click on show all, what happens? Whatever the details, see, the details what you can see over here will be enabled on this tab. Okay, or else you can, if you can click on show all, by default all these options will get enabled on your invoice lines. Or else you can even select what type of what specific type of item, the display item value on the invoice lines you want to visible, that you can enable. Okay, so since I did enable the line as well, if you go into the corrected invoice, the line item details also got enabled. If you remember, this was not enabled in the previous screen. When we see the correction type and number were only the two fields which were enabled. Okay, what happens if I click on show all? Let's see. The default view is reset upon reload. Okay, the default, whatever the default view, it has the limited fields, but show all, it will show you the all the fields. That is what it tells you. Okay, so just save it. I have saved and I am just validating it. Right, just create accounting. My accounting is also done. Now I have to go into the payment, because I want to see this transaction, this impact of this transaction, right? So I want to make a payment, right? Just go into the payment side. Okay, there are uh, you can submit the payment process request, right? This payment process request can be submitted by providing the various options. Okay, or else you can even run the payment from here, create payment. Even this is also one of the area where you can make the payment. We will see this screen later. Okay, since we have done the batch payments yesterday, we'll continue on that one, and I'll try to cover this payment create payment option tomorrow. Okay, both this also serves the same purpose, but the batch payment, what is the difference? When you see on the create payment, you see the supplier and supplier side, which means invoices which belongs to one supplier can be made payment from here. Okay, and from the batch payments, whatever the screen which we have seen yesterday, the very first one, submit PPR, payment process request, it selects the invoices for payment, whatever the invoices which falls under the selection criteria, right? Maybe those invoices belongs to one or more suppliers. You can make the payments in one go for one or more invoices, whether for each of these supplier the invoices may be maybe one or more, right? So I want to introduce one more concept over here. Okay. So submit payment process request. So while submitting this payment process request, why a user should always select these options when the payment PPR is going to be submitted by the user, right? There should be a template in place. If you can see this, if you can see towards the right side, template. What happens is there is an instead of giving these options manually each time, you can create a template, right? Whatever the options you select, you can configure it one place, and the template can be reused. Okay, whatever the configurations I have, while submitting the PPR what we select yesterday, we have given the business unit for Apple Beats Inc, and the payment the disbursement bank details we have selected. But why I as a user, why should I select these options frequently as and when I submit the PPR? There should be some facilitation from the application where I can save my default configuration so that while I can submit the PPR, right? Even that is also available in Oracle by way of creating a template. Okay, you can select this template. Whatever the templates that exist in the application will be shown up in the list of values. Okay, once the template is being selected, the default PPR values that we selected the template will be defaulted. Okay, instead of giving these options, let us create a template and start using the template while submitting the PPR. Okay, where do you set up? If you can see the third task, manage payment process request templates, right? So here you can search for the existing templates, or you can create from this button, or you should even have from actions as well. Okay, just click on create, and uh, Apple check PPR for US. Okay, there is a type daily loans expense and reports EFT. You don't select anything. Okay, and if you can see, all these options were available while submitting the PPR, right? The same window will be displayed here. But what we are doing, instead of giving those values every time, we are creating a template just to facilitate the kind of a facilitation for the end user, right? So just let me add the business unit over here as we did yesterday, right? So I don't want to touch anything over here. Okay, payment date, user request date, or calculation based on request date. This is what should be you the uh, what should be the payment date while we are giving the while we are submitting the PPR. The payment date in the second tab automatically got populated to your system date, which is the PPR request date. What is in the same way it is asking which date, use request date or calculate based on the request date. What is that calculation? It might ask something. Okay, just give the disbursement bank details so that the bank details should be auto populated. Okay, where is that? This is the payment document, and these are the this is the payment process profile. And if you remember, while submitting the PPR, with the payment PPR got paused two times: review proposed payments and review installments. Okay, this happens if you uncheck this, the PPR will be keep on going, and it keep on going until it generates the check. Okay, since we want to review the invoices, what are the invoices that got selected into PPR, we have to enable this one. And the create payment process immediate files is, it is just to create the payment file immediately after completing this PPR. These three checkbox talks about that process. Okay, just let me save and close, or save it. Okay, just exit it from here and go into the again submit payment process request, and you can select the template which we created over here. Okay, just select the template. Okay, so if you can see all these options whatever we set up on the template level got defaulted, right? Just let me give the payment day. So if you can see all these details, whatever we have set up at the template level got defaulted. You don't need to, you while submitting the payment process request, you don't need to fill the details again each time. Just create a template and start using that template. Okay, just submit it. Right, let me query back the PPR. You can do it from the requiring attention. Here it should display, or else you can, or else you can go into the manage payment process request and query for the payment PPR that you have submitted. Okay, just keep on refresh. The stage and status should display here, and the action button also should display here. This is the status updated pending installments review, which means it is waiting for the user to review the installments which got selected. Okay, so what all actions that a user can make at the PPR level once the invoices are selected, right? What we discussed yesterday, we can update the what do you call the amount. That is what one thing we said, right? We can remove the selected invoices as well. Okay, so I can see from this batch there are four invoices, which four installments which got selected, out of which two are the invoices and two notes, credit or debit memos, right? So I don't want to pay this invoice in this batch. Okay, I can remove that invoice. System gives you an opportunity to do that. Okay, and you can even add the installment as well. Let us say the depends upon the selection criteria, the application has selected these invoices, and still you want to add some of the invoices which are outside of the selection criteria. Still you can go and update on the still you can go and add the invoices. Okay, how do you do that? You can search for the specific supplier, or the if you know the invoice number, that also you can include here. So this is the invoice which got added. You can even add this invoice as well. Okay, it should get added here. Let me just save. Acha, I think we haven't given add to payment process request. This I need to click. Okay, the invoice got added. If you can see here. Okay, what we can do, we can remove an installment from the invoice batch which got selected, or else you can remove, and optionally you can even update the payment amount as well, right? That we already did yesterday, right? So let me remove this invoice because I want to show this the impact. So now what we are making the payment against this invoice is there is an one standard invoice and there is an two credits credit notes. One is the debit memo and one is the credit memo with worth of 300 dollars for one invoice, which is an debit memo, and another $150 which is credit memo, right? So the positive amount whatever we have, the invoice amount is from the invoice which we got from the vendor is for $2000, but there are two credit notes. One is for 300 or one is for 400. How does this invoice amount will be adjusted? That is what we wanted to see, right? Okay, just click on save. Okay, if you can see, the updated amount is already updated on the header level. Okay, 2000 is the invoice positive amount, out of which 300 and 150 which comes to 450 minus 2000 minus 450, which how much it comes to 1550, out of which by using this payment document we are actually making payments to the vendor only 15,000 $1500 by adjusting the $450 with the credit note, right? So if you have a credit note in your wallet while making the payment, so it would ask you to make the balance amount only, right? The same thing is happening over here as well. Okay, just click on submit. Refresh it. Right, it has given you the option called to view this one. So how much we are paying? 1550. These are the payments that details that got generated. These are the invoice details, right? Resume payment process, that can be done from the clicking on the resume payment process, or you can even go into the actions button on the actions button there on the payment process. You can do that from that button as well, right? So I'm just, since the payments is generated and I just want to print these checks, right? Still what are the actions I can, still I can see my payment is generated, but still I can cancel this payment until it prints. You can cancel this payment because the invoice will be available. Okay, just click on print. It would print the checks now. Okay, if the printer is configured, the printer will print the checks against the according to the configuration that we made, right? Going to the actions button once again. What do you know, now the checks are available. You would be evaluating the printed checks, right? How the printing is done, whether the invoice details whatever you have are printed correctly or not, right? Once that is done, you are satisfied, then you click the record print status, or else if you wish something is wrongly printed, you go for the reprint, right? So just record print status, so that the final step of this PPR is done, which means the payment is completed. You can go and view the document state against to status the printed. There is a view button, right? You can click on that one. It would give you the check details. What are the details that this is the payment document. Okay, this is the check details. Okay, now this is done. right? So once the payment is done, once the payment is done, what all actions that you can do, that you can make on the payment side. Okay, so let me go and query back the payment which we just created. Right, so let me go into the payment document. Okay, let me account it. Okay, the accounting is done, fine, no issues. So what happens, the what is the check number it got printed? You can see over here, right, in this document. This is the check number is the fifth, right? The payment document is also, you can see here, right? So once the payment is issued, once the check is issued to the supplier, then you want to cancel that check. Maybe due to various reasons, once you issue a check, you want to cancel the check. How do you do that? Right, you have given a check to the, you have given a check to the one of the person, but you don't want to make the payment against that check, right? How do you do that? That is nothing but a canceling the payments, right? So how do you do that? You, in case of the banking, how does, first of all, see, check is printed in the Oracle application, and that check is being handed over to the Apple Beats supplier. This supplier can go and present the check in the bank at any point of time, so that the check will get honored and the cash will be deposited. Cash will be given to that supplier, right? So if you wish to void, if you wish to cancel this payment, there are this two steps needs to be followed, right? See, one thing is, the check needs to be cancelled in your application. How do you do that? Just go to the action, simply click on void. Okay, so it will ask you to the void payment details, void date, which means what date you want to cancel, and what is the accounting date that should be used. And there are invoice actions. What is this invoice actions is, this payment document whatever we just created, right? These payments, these invoices which are picked up of this payment document, what action should be, what action should be done on the invoicing side? Why? Because why you are canceling the payment? There should be some purpose, right? The invoice, maybe the invoice which is issued by the supplier may be an incorrect invoices which needs to be, which never should be paid, right? In that case, what you can do, you can void the payment, as well as you can even cancel the payments. If you select this cancel invoice, what happens, if you select the cancel invoice option and click on submit, what happens, the payment will get cancelled, as well as the invoices which are inside of this payment batch also will get cancelled. Why? Because we are making a statement that the invoice itself is not eligible for making payment. Okay, and there is another option called none, which means the check will get cancelled, but the invoice will stay as it is, so that the invoice will be paid in next pay batch when you run. Okay, and there is another option, place on hold invoice, which means the payment will get cancelled, but the invoices will be put on hold. Okay, when the invoice is on hold, obviously the invoice will not be selected for payment in the next batch run until unless those invoices are released from the hold. Okay, you can, you can select any of these reasons and you can put it on hold. Okay, when you want to, let us say I had used this option, place invoice on hold, with given the some invoice the whole name, right? So those invoices will not be selected for payment until unless you release the invoices. Okay, How do you do the release invoices? You need to go to the invoices work in a specific invoice, and there you should, from the invoice action, you should release the invoices from hold. Okay, let me make it as none and click on submit. Okay, so what happens is, the see the invoice, the payment status is already got updated to voided. Initially it was negotiable. Okay, just go into the document, right? Just click on post to ledger, view accounting, and see the accounting, right? So initially what happens, this liability account, whatever the liability we had, right, at the 2000, for this clearing account 1550. See the payment what we made, 1550, this would have been the debited, and the cash clearing account, it was debited, credited. But as we reverse the payment account also, it created a reversing accounting entry for payment. Okay, while making the payment, you can even see the status as well here, the event. This event is being created for the payment created, and this is for the payment created event, right? And the other events, what you can see are the payment cancellation, which means the whatever the accounting entry that gets generated for the payment will get reversed as well by way of creating another journal entry, so that the net effect on the accounting will be zero. Okay, this is how the void payment works. Okay, which means what we did, we have created a payment and we have voided the payment, okay, in the Oracle applications, right? How the banker knows that information, this check hasn't to this check, whatever the check we have cancelled in the application, that check needs to be communicated to the banker as well, right? How does the banker knows? There are two options. One is the positive pay file way, where a file will be generated and the file will be sent to the bank. This is an automated process, and for that process there is some other steps which you need to, as a consultant from application side, which we need to configure, so that the file will be generated and that file will be sent to the bank. Okay, that is one way of communication. The other way is to, just you need to pass the communication to the bank, maybe through the email, or maybe by way of calling them over the phone. That is how it happens. Even in individual case also, that is how it happens, right? So if you look at, if you check on your mobile application for the banking account, you would see there is a file called positive pay file, right? What does this positive pay file function will do is, see, as a person, as a company, you are giving checks to the various vendors. How does that communication is going to the bank saying that these many checks I have issued? It is not going, right? So to avoid that, the issues while making the payment through checks, just for the maintain the accuracy, there is a positive pay file concept that has been introduced, and that positive pay file will consist the check details, and it generate the file, and it will be transmitted, it will be sent to the banker, so that while making the payment, the banker also checks whether the check details are matched with the file that we sent to the bank. Okay, that is how it happens. And there are few other options while on the check payments, right? Let us go and see what are the other actions that you can do. Okay, one of the options what we did is, we have voided the payment, which is nothing but canceling your payment, right? So let me open this payment which we made this payment yesterday and go into the actions, right? This void we did. Okay, initiate stop. What is the initiate stop is, we have given check to the vendor supplier, but this check, whatever the check payment, has to be put on hold. Okay, maybe due to various reasons. The supplier, whatever the material that they have sent, maybe the supplier hasn't fulfilled the some of the agreements, or maybe you have a mutual understanding with the customer saying that I have given the check, but I'll make give me some time so that the I can make the payment, right? Whatever may be the reasons. So right, so in that case, how do you record that action in the application, right? Just you click on the initiate the stop date and stop reason and stop reference, whatever the details, though those these are the optional, you can give, but I am just giving the stop date and just clicking on submit. See, the status got updated to stop initiated. Initially, prior to this, it was negotiable. Okay, which means the check number 4 is stop initiated, which means the check check is not supposed to be paid. Okay, but again, how does this communication is communicated to the banker? Again, it should generate a positive pay file. That file should be sent to the banker, or else you can communicate to the banker over communication, maybe over email or phone, right? So at later point, if you can see these details, the payment date which was made on March 15th, but on March 16th we have made a we have updated this payment to kind of an hold, we can say. We can just making this payment, just refraining the banker from paying this check until certain communication is being sent to the banker. Okay, so on March 16th we made an action saying that this payment should be stopped until further communication, right? We have for that we have marked that payment as an stop initiated on the check in the inside Oracle application, and that communication will be, how does that communication will be sent to the banker? Maybe in the form of file or maybe over the email, whatever the communication, right? Let us say after certain conditions are met, whatever the agreement the supplier is has to be met, then this payment has to be issued. Now the payment should be made to available to the payment supplier. Then simply what do you do? So you can come to that payment document by way of searching the payment date or the payment document number, right? Go to the payment document and actions, stop cancel. See, here there are two options. You can still see the wider cancel stop. See, once the stop is initiated, the supplier hasn't fulfilled the conditions, whatever the agreement you have made. Still, you can hasn't made the he hasn't fulfilled the conditions, so that you can void the payment as well, right? I don't want to make the payment this supplier, whatever the check I have issued, I can go and void that one and assume that the supplier has fulfilled the agreement condition. Then now the supplier is able, should be able to encash the check. In that case, I can click on the stop cancel so that the status got updated to negotiable. Okay, and now this information again, the stop initiated information again has to be sent to the banker by way of email or by way of file, so that the check will be deposited and the subsequent amount can be paid back to the supplier. This is how you can void and reissue options you can use. There is an another issue called reissue. What does this reissue is? Suppose you have issued checks to the vendors. Okay, at the time of issuing the checks, maybe the check wrongly printed, or maybe the check which is printed correctly, but once we hand over the check to the supplier, the check maybe got damaged at the supplier end, right? You as an individual, you once you issue a check to a certain person, maybe after 1 or 2 days the check, maybe the person lost the check or the check may be damaged, right? The person can approach you, boss, you have given me a check, but the check got damaged, I lost the check, right? In that case, what do you do? If it is a damaged check, what do you take that old check and you issue a new check, right? So that issue a new check is the purpose called reissue. Reissue means just click on the reissue, right? Reissue date, and if you look at the new document, it 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 cancels it, it is generating a new document. If you see check number 6, because the payment whatever we generated today, the check number was 5. Now when I click on the reissue, it is generating a new check. Okay, new check. So let us click on this application and see what exact action this application is going to do. We are reissuing a check on the existing check number 4. Just remember this check number 4 as well. What action it is going to do on the check number 4? Click on submit, right? Click on actions. Okay. If you click on this search, the check number 4, whatever we had reissued on top of this document, it got voided. That is how Oracle application does, because you are supposed to pay $1,000 to the vendor Apple Beats, and that vendor was given with a check number 4, but the check got damaged, and the vendor has requested you to issue a fresh check, right? What do you do in that case? You are issuing a new check, but the old check has to be cancelled, right? So that is what the two-step action that application is doing when you are using the action called reissue. When you are reissuing a check for an existing check, what happens is a new check will be issued and automatically the old check will get voided. Okay, so you can check the check number 6, because the check number which is generated, the payment is generated today, right? The 6 check number, you can see it is negotiable status, right? It is negotiable unaccounted because we haven't accounted this check. Fine. What we have seen the standard invoice with the adjusting the credit memo and debit memo. We have voided and payment scenario, right? We have seen the stop and reissue payments. We have even seen stop. Uh, Sorry, this is stop and not reissue.
Tirupati, when we will give this debit memo and credit memo, where the goods are written, that time we will give.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, Tirupati, once we are accounting once accounting the payment, can we have any major changes on that payment? I mean, like that
Just give me one
stock.
minute. I'll come back to your question. Just give me 1 minute. So these are the steps we have seen today, as well as we have even seen the payment process request, right? Payment PPR template as well, right? These are the action that we have seen in today's session. Uh, I thought of covering the prepayment as well, but okay, fine, no issues. Yes, someone had a question. I think it's Manohar. Yes, Manohar.
Yes, Tirupati. Once we accounting the payment, can we have able to make any changes like void the payment, stop and reissue the
Yes, you
payment, like
can. You can. You can. That is what we have seen, right? See, once you make the see whatever the void. Let us say you have accounted and you have generated a payment, and yesterday you have done the accounting. The accounting has been posted to general ledger, and today you realize the check. not supposed to be paid. It is wrongly issued to this vendor, right? So in that case, what you do, you void the payment. The action what you do, you void the payment. So whatever the payment accounting entry that has already been hit into your books, that has to be reversed, right? Correct. So it creates, when on the same document, when you click on the accounting, it generates a reversing accounting entry. How do you, what we have seen in the reverse and journal reversal in the GL is just to make any posted journal, if something needs to be corrected, how it happens? By way of reversing, right? Voiding also, it is a kind of reversing your payments. When you
Well,
reverse a payment, whatever the accounting it generated with that, it has to be reversed, right?
yeah. After voided the payment, can we should we have sorry, again post to again post to ledger?
Yes, you
Again,
should. Otherwise, how an accounting will be generated?
yeah, yeah,
You should create accounting. Other until unless you run the create accounting, the accounting will not generate it, right?
yeah. Yes, yes.
Any further questions?
I mean, yes, Tipati. I mean, what is exact meaning of cash clearing account?
See, that is what. See, it is an interim account. This we discussed at the time of payables beginning itself. I've clearly given example with example. So
Yes.
cash clearing account is as a clearing account where, see, at the time of payment option, there are two options. At what time you want to account? At the payment time, at payment issue time, uh, right? At payment issue and clearing time. Three options we had. This is a radio button, which means only one option you can select, right? So, at what time you want to reconcile your cash account, right? At what time the cash account has to come into picture. Okay, the I should uh, book my cash account at the time of reconciliation, which means, let us say you have issued a check to the one of the person. Let us say you have given me a check, right? So I go into the bank and I deposit that check, right? I get the money. When your bank balance gets updated, when I present my check in the bank, when the check got honored, at that time your bank account balances will get reduced, right? Similarly, at what time you want to update your cash balances in your Oracle applications? Okay, immediately at the time of issuing your check, say, let us say you have given me a check yesterday and I have presented the check to I have presented the check today in the bank, right? The cash account at what time has to be hit in the applications. If you choose the first option, at the time of issue, the cash account will directly get credited yesterday with the yesterday's date itself when you issue me a check. But you have taken an option at the time of reconciliation, which means once I go into the bank and I got the cash, then you will be taking the bank statement, and that bank statement will be reconciled with your books of accounts, right? So at that time, if you wish to update your cash balances, then until that time, where which account that amount has to be parked into, in that case the cash clearing account will comes into picture. Hope it is clear.
Yes, Tipati, got it.
Yeah, yeah. Any further questions, anyone?